What's up, everyone? Happy Thursday night to you all. Welcome to the Let Loose podcast, the podcast dedicated to all things Gym Leader Challenge in the Pokemon TCG. Like always, we've got another great episode for you, and we've got kind of a return of a co-host we haven't seen in a hot minute, someone we've truly missed, not only on the pod, but we've just missed being around and hanging out with. We've got the king of all of GLC, our Gym Leader Challenge hero. We've got Wheatr. Wheatr, what's up, my friend?
Not much. I'm glad to be back on a Thursday night. I miss our gaming time, so glad to be here and talk some GLC.
Yeah, dude, you've been busy, to say the least. I mean, we've got so many things to talk about tonight, and you are like front row and center of a lot of different happenings in the Gym Leader Challenge right now, not just on the online scene. Wheatr has ventured out into the world, and you've run an in-person tournament that really boosted up the the Gym Leader Challenge community, which we're going to go ahead and talk about. But first, we got to get into a kind of a CBW update, because yeah, you did do some in-person stuff, but of course, you know, what you do and what Cardboard Warriors does online is so much of what people see when they research Gym Leader Challenge, you know, deck lists, tournament results. I mean, it's all you, it's all Cardboard Warriors. Let's talk about what's been happening recently. So, kind of three big things. The Async League, we had the Open Badge season. We started Twin Leaf Test tournaments. I mean, do you want to talk us through some of those things that have been going on at Cardboard Warriors?
Yep. So we just started the season 5 of the Asynchronous League, where you battle it out. You earn points by winning GLC games at your leisure. It's not in a tournament format, but it's you just queue up and get a game when you're available, and you try to climb to the top of your type to make the playoffs, and then should you win the playoffs, then you make it to the Hall of Fame, forever enshrined on the website. So season 5 just started, and then let's see, Twin Leaf Test tourneys. Thank goodness for you for running those on Monday nights. Is it still Mondays? I think it's Monday nights. And those have been getting better and better week after week from what I've seen. So that's good news. I think Twin Leaf is coming along. Trying to add to the card pool all the relevant GLC cards. You know, GLC is full of niche strategies where everybody has their pet decks, but we try to hit the high points, fix all the bugs that you find in the tournaments, and yeah, hopefully that's going well for you, but greatly appreciate you running those tournaments for us.
Yeah, I've been loving the test tournaments, the Twin Leaf test tournaments. Again, I know I talk about it so much, but just seeing where Twin Leaf has come from just like a month or two ago when we were testing Leviathan against Hitmon Bros and like not being able to finish a game to like, you know, this last test tournament I played Psychic Lost Zone and just like did not have a single problem at all while I was playing it. Not to say the same about some of my opponents, but just like seeing how it's going, seeing the investment that like you, Tommy, and Joe have put into it. I know there's a fourth member, I think Charlie is his name, who I've never really spoken to, but I know he exists out there in the ether. But it's just so great to kind of see that, and you guys have been killing it, and I'm happy. I'm appreciative to run those test tournaments, and I just love seeing, you know, I get to play against Roger again, Acco Blubber, who just was someone I used to play against on PTCGO a ton back in the day, and he's just not that much into webcam these days. So getting that chance to play against some of kind of my old homies again is so great. So again, thank you to you for that. I'll gladly run the tournament. It's super easy. Just click a button, unless you mess up, which I do quite frequently.
Yeah, well, it's a great way to get all the GLC cards tested, and you know, there's so many niche interactions between all the different abilities and effects of attacks and trainer cards, and so there's a lot to test, and weekly hammering on the card base is really helpful.
It definitely feels like maybe there was like a little lull in testing, and then we started doing the tournaments, and you know, a lot more has been going on. So again, happy to run those. You mentioned Async League 5, and we just wrapped up Async League 4. So we got the runner-up and the champions list up here. So I feel like it's pretty important for us to talk about these deck lists. We saw some common trends from previous season. Again, I think this is almost a repeat of what we saw last season. We had Jeffrey and Costella both rounding up the finals, making their way through the bracket. And here we have Jeffrey's list. Again, if you guys don't know, Jeffrey Van Beeken, who ended up winning, I believe, the spring championship, not the summer championship, the spring championship, with a similar list. And this is his lazy code deck. And it features crazy code Porygon Z, which is a rain dance effect for special energy. Then you've got Slacking, which is a heavy hitter, 160 damage for 3. It does stop all abilities on your Pokemon or opponent's side with its lazy ability. And then if it does attack, you have to discard an energy. But of course, you've just got Recycle energy in the deck. So this is a list that Jeffrey has piloted a ton. What are your thoughts on this list and maybe Async League Season 4 in the whole?
So this is, pretty standard from Jeffrey. I think he swapped Lugias not that long ago. Maybe it's a few months ago at this point. But from Celebrations to the Energy Loop Lugia, which I know he likes a lot. But Colorless has been getting a lot of new toys to play with lately, like Colorless Tenacity. And this tournament started before, what's the set that just came out?
Stellar Crown.
Stellar Crown, that's right. So which had Rotom Fan Rotom, sorry, which would have been a huge boost to this deck specifically. So he still obviously did very well without it, but I think this list compared to I think in season 4 he really teched out for what he thought he was going to see and may have had an effect on his results. So this one seems to be all in on consistency, and obviously did well enough to make finals, and he's a great player, so that's to be expected anyway.
Love this list. I think the last couple of iterations might have been running the Swellow too, the 2 prize taking ancient trait Swellow, and we see that kind of swapped out here for really nothing. I think it just was space for more consistency cards. But you do mention the Lugia here, Energy Loop Lugia, which is 3 energy to do 120, and then the energy pops back into your head. Kind of a cool way to see Jeffrey deciding that maybe keeping hold of a special energy is maybe more important than hitting the bigger numbers with the other Lugia. So I really do like that change. We saw this list when I played Logan on stream a couple weeks ago. Similar list, I think it was including Fan Rotom, but we saw Energy Loop Lugia having a bit of a tough time when you couldn't attach to the Lugia to keep taking knockouts and set up another attacker. I was playing Lost Zone, so obviously I was just going after the bench, so he just couldn't chain attackers in the same consistent manner without Porygon Z. But I don't think the other Lugia really solves that issue either, so I don't know. So to be tested on which Lugia is better, but Jeffrey obviously opting for this one. So cool list. Again, like you said, it's Jeffrey's cup and tea. Love everything about it except Snorlax. Winning deck list is a deck that I love to see. And we've got, is it back-to-back champion or was it a break in between, Wheatr? I can't remember.
Stella won season 3, and then he made it to the finals last season against my Wailord deck, and then this season he's back in the finals again. So that's 3 in a row with fighting.
Yeah.
Kind of unheard of in any tournament of any kind for GLC. So props to him for that consistency.
Yeah. And, fighting is a deck that you don't really think of when you think of consistency. So I know, like, you and I think that maybe if this deck had to deal with maybe, like, Swiss rounds before it found its way into the finals, the results would be different. But Costella has proven, again, he won the summer championship. I think that's where my brain was going back to back. He won the summer championship with this list going through Swiss rounds. So just showing himself to be maybe one of the best pilots, especially, I would say, the best pilot with Hitmonbros in the world. And this deck is, something I know very dear. You've got your Hitmons all costing 1 energy, all needing to attack in sequence. Hit and run from Hitmonchan's 30 to the active, and it can switch out. You've got Hitmonlee, who can do 90 to the bench if you used Hitmonchan previously. And again, for just 1 energy, and that's just a powerful attack to disrupt your opponents on turn 2 and really stop them from getting going. Then you've got, on that third to the game, potentially, Hitmontop that for 1 energy does 60 everywhere. Sometimes you leave your opponents kind of scared to bench if they see the Hitmonlee coming down. So again, you're just getting disruptive by making your opponent kind of like ease off the pedal a bit for even a turn because they're scared of that KO. But the real star, and kind of like what has maybe changed this deck a little bit, is you've got this Okie Dokie printing. Of course, it's just 130 basic that does 70, but its ability says it does 100 more damage if it has a dark energy attached, which is so easy to do with special energies. And then you're just rounding it out with other cheap, efficient, strong attackers. You got Lucario, you've got Machamp, you've got Ultra Bench Bearer and Machoke, and then you've got Hawlucha that's really important for fixing numbers. Then you see, Karate Belt down here so that you can power up something like a Machamp with a Raihan and a Karate Belt that reduces the fighting cost of an attack of a fighting Pokemon. And then some other cards like, Erica's Hospitality here. It's just kind of an interesting pick in fighting. Fighting likes to kind of draw forward and kind of continue building its hand instead of shuffle draw effects at times, because you don't want to get rid of good cards. So I do think Erica's Hospitality is a really good include. Wheatr, any thoughts on this list?
Clearly, it's a great list. Bit of a sour experience with it in Baltimore. I played it one of the side events there, and I was counting while you were going through that, counting the opening hand dead cards, and I were 5 or 6, and I drew 5. No, there's maybe 7. I drew 5 dead cards in my opening hand. Did nothing for the whole game. So, that's GLC. It happens. But I played this deck one of the Twin Leaf test tournaments, and that went well. It's a great deck and well constructed by Castella. So it's fun to play fighting with a strong fighting deck.
Kudos to Castella. Congratulations on your championship, 2-time Hall of Famer. Now, Async League is getting a bit of a switch up. Castella and Jeffrey, are both members of the Hall of Fame. They can no longer play fighting and colorless. So I'm interested to see what they cook up. Castella's already been playing some metal, and so I haven't seen Jeffrey pop up, but I feel like Jeffrey's going to have something toasty to bring to the Async League once he starts getting some games in.
Yeah, he's always cooking something, so it'll be nice to see what he goes to when colorless isn't available.
But yeah, that's it for the CBW wrap-up. Anything that we missed, Wheatr, that you want to bring back up, or just getting the Baltimore Regionals here?
Nothing that I can think of. No. Well, we've got actually we have a big tournament coming up in November. We'll be having I don't know if you had that planned for later. If you did, sorry, but
nope. Talk about it now.
We have the Fall Brawl, what I'm calling it. Actually have a sponsor this time. We've got a booster box prize for first place. Pricing for first all the way to 8th. So substantial pricing, and I hope that drives some engagement and gives people something to play for. So I'm looking forward to that quite a bit.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think the date was decided to be November 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, which is the first Saturday in November, almost a month from today. And again, Darkside Games is that sponsor. I'm going to go ahead and shout them out. They are no stranger to our podcast. Whenever Z-Man's on, we mention him. Use Z-Man's code if you're looking to get some cards, by the way. I think it's Z-Man15. We'll go ahead and shout him out too. Z-Man is just a great person, so support him in any way that you can too. And obviously, sign up for this tournament. Again, I hope that I get a chance to participate in some capacity. Again, weekends, I say this every pod, it feels like weekends are tough just because of little man, who is, again, my favorite person in the world, so I'm not too sad that I have to miss it, but hoping to maybe cast a little bit of that, hopefully alongside you. I've even roped Z-Man in a bit, so we might get Z-Man casting as well, so excited about all of that, excited about what all of it entails, and of course, huge prizing, and that probably means big online tournament. So let's go. Predictions already. Let's save the predictions for the end, because I think we're going to talk about some of the things that we saw in Baltimore Regionals, and we can predict at the end what we think we're going to see for the Fall Brawl, because there's a lot of one deck at these tournaments that did pretty well. That being said, let's talk regionals. Baltimore Regionals. Exciting stuff, sad stuff to a certain degree. We missed out on a Friday official tournament. Again, there were some sisterhood events that went on. Again, I want to state how important those events are. Again, events for women in the community to kind of feel comfortable in a place. So sisterhood events are great. Keep them coming. But because of that, something had to make way, and that was the Gym Leader Challenge event on Friday, which when you look at like how the Gym Leader Challenge events go, Friday and Sunday are kind of your bigger events. People getting to the venue looking to do something on Friday, people not making day two looking for something fun to do on Sunday, and then Saturday everyone's playing the big standard tournament. So missing out on a Friday one felt tough, Wheatr. It felt tough. But you stepped in. Like, it's so awesome. Like, you stepped in and you ran a Cardboard Warriors in-person event. Is that the first official Cardboard Warriors in-person event?
That is. It was kind of an impromptu thing. We, I say we, but people in Discord kept looking for the side event schedule, trying to plan when to get there Friday, how late should we stay Sunday, based on when the GLC events would be. When they finally came out with the event schedule, the Tuesday week of, which is very late, and normally it's much earlier than that. GLC wasn't on there, like you mentioned, so uh, D-Man and I were rather disappointed, so we decided to get his crew, which is a great locals. They have a lot of GLC players, and most of them are very good. So between that group, D-Man's Twitter following, and posting everywhere I knew where to post about GLC, we ended up with a good crew, and it was a lot of fun. I had a good time organizing that, writing the article, seeing who won, what types did well, and all. Good time.
Yeah. And the best part of all this, obviously, like, the community called, you answered, Z-Man answered again. People who I would say are basically pillars of the community at this point. Like, you guys are just doing so much for this format, and I can't state that enough, and I will continue stating that because it's just so important to me that we recognize people that are helping us grow, and you and Z-Man and really the Baltimore crew are really doing an amazing job, and I love that. But when we get the official Saturday and Sunday events, again, I don't want to talk bad about them because they're really important, but obviously people are running them that aren't as passionate as you. And so when we get this CBW run event, we get meta breakdowns. We get an article about it, which again, we're going to talk about here in a second. We get deck lists. We got all top 8 deck lists, and it's not like us hoping that someone posted on Twitter. Like, these are people that we know. These are people that you talk to at the event. So it's just great that this happened to a certain degree because we get to talk about some data, which we've been lacking. And it's cool to see that. It's cool to see what people brought to a competitive event. Yeah, and let's get into it. And I'm going to bring it up here. Like, it's so hard to find any information about the Saturday and Sunday event. I was very fortunate that, if you guys are members of the Tricky Gym Discord, you can hop in and you can go and look about some people posting their deck list and what they did well. So shout out here to Wabanuts, who is someone that you guys might have seen. He's very active in the Dragon Gym channel, but he ended up going 4-0 on the Sunday event, and so I found out that there were 64 people at the Sunday event, but I don't really have much other information, so here's his Dragon list on the screen. Shout out to him for going 4-0. I don't really know what ended up happening on the Saturday event. Again, I don't have a lot of data from that. If you do have data, listeners, drop it in the YouTube comments below or wherever you're listening. I'm sure people would love to hear about it, but we do have data about your tournament. Let's talk it down. Meta breakdown here. It's an interesting one, Wheatr. Again, you see colorless, water, and psychic as the most represented types, which I don't think is surprising to anyone. And then you look down, 2 people played fairy, 3 people played fire. And again, I think the consensus is those are pretty lower tier types to a certain degree. Obviously, people have their favorites, which is why they came and played them. But 2 and 3 being low numbers, but dark having 3, lightning, dragon, fighting all at 4, and then metal and grass kind of evening out there with 5 and 7. It feels like people played their favorites while still maybe leaning into some of the more consistent types. What are your thoughts on the meta breakdown here?
I was, not overly surprised. I think if you look at the card pool for effective types, number of players kind of matches magnitude of this card pool for each type. Maybe I would have expected to see more dark. one that really stuck out to me. So out of 50 players, we only had 3 dark players, which was surprising, but it's no surprise to see Psychic, Colorless, and Water at the top, and Grass as well. I think that's very common at regionals and maybe all GLC tournaments in general. They just have the most options. You can play style that you want and have the support that you need, make it happen in those types more so than in other types.
Again, I have to agree with everything you said there. Fighting being at 4 and Dragon being at 4, I feel like maybe is underrepresentative of where I feel like those types should be. Maybe that was like the only surprising thing to me. And then Metal at 5 being the 5th most popular type. That kind of jumped out to me and was surprising. I know it's only by one person, but Metal is a deck that I don't normally think of being super popular, although I do know that there is kind of a big fan base for it. But it did get some new tools, which I think maybe is one of the reasons why we saw it kind of a slight boost in popularity here. Now, as the rounds went on, it kind of evened out more to what we had expected, right? After round 3, these are your undefeated decks. Almost half the field that's undefeated at this point is colorless. You've got only like roughly 14.3% Psychic, Metal, and Water, and a Dragon kind of rounding out your 3-0s, all kind of even share of the pie here at the end. This is not surprising either, Wheatr, right?
No, I think Metal sneaking in there may have been a surprise, but yeah, those types had the most representation and are generally considered the strongest due to their card pool. So I'm not surprised at all by that. We also had Fan Rotom available for this tournament, which boosted colorless quite a bit, and we had Raging Bolt, the dragon list that was undefeated after round 3. So Raging Bolt, I know I talked to Paolo who played Dragon, who I guess he went 4-1 if I remember correctly. He said Raging Bolt was great, had a big impact on his tournament. So Stellar Crown played I would say, a sizable role in how things went in the tournament.
Yeah, and we talked about Stellar Crown a lot when we did our set review. And Stellar Crown's cards, there's not a ton of them that are overly powerful, but the ones that are good, that are playable, are really good. Like Fan Rotom is borderline busted. And then Raging Bolt, that I played on stream with my Ancient Dragon deck, is just nuts in a deck that never had the ability to attack the bench before. Metal too, I kind of thought that maybe, you've got the new Archaladon, you've got the new Metal, that maybe that would kind of boost Metal's popularity a bit. But we're going to see in the Metal list that made top 8 here in a bit that those cards didn't really make a show. So maybe some other Metal decks were doing work out there. And I just think in general, Water and Psychic are just really popular. Now, to finish out the tournament, because there were 5 Swiss rounds in total, this was our kind of representation at the end of all the 5-0 and 4-1 decks. So you've got Colorless, Psychic, and Water. Again, I just think everyone points to those as the top 3 with a quarter share of the representation. And then you've got Dragon and Metal splitting them out there. Again, just this feels right. Maybe Metal is the only one you're kind of like, again. But this just feels like where GLC is at, right?
Yeah, I think that's very representative of the general meta. And I think something important to note is that Grass was the 4th most popular, and it didn't sniff a 3-0, and it didn't sniff a 4-1 or 5-0. So Grass, I don't think, has kept up lately, and the tournament results bear that out. And then Fighting had 5 players as well, and nowhere to be found. I don't take that for what it's worth, but Colorless, Psychic, and Water definitely leading the charge as the most powerful types at the.
I mean, and when you have like such a powerful draw engine like Colorless does, when you have Gallade like Psychic does, and so many other cards that just really boost the consistency, and then when you just have Shady Dealings and Teleon, like you expect those types to perform well, especially consistently over a 5-round tournament, and again, that's what we saw. Let's get into the list. We got the top 8 here, and I am really excited to kind of dive into these lists. We're going to see, you mentioned it earlier, Baltimore showed out, and out of like I think this top eight, I think we're gonna see maybe 5 or 6 deck lists from that Baltimore area. So again, shout out to all the people out there. And our first one here is someone whose decks I really enjoy kind of looking at and checking out, and this is Bohemian, also known as Alex. But Bohemian, and I know him mostly for his lightning, like turbo lightning builds with Raikou. But this deck is really interesting. It's a Rain Dance build, but instead of running like a Whale Lord, they've opted to run the big hitting Palafin. And so you pair that with your other Rain Dance effects. You've got Artabax, you've got Frostmoth, then you've just got Artillery and Shady Dealings. And then your other attackers in this list, you've got Kyogre and Lapras. So instead of going into the Wailord, you're kind of like the anti-Wailord deck, because since you're not running something like that, you actually can afford to run Hex, which sometimes you don't see in water lists because you don't want to, Hex with your Wailord in the active. So this Palafin being able to deal with a Wailord and Hex being in the deck is pretty great. And then it's just consistency pieces beyond that. There's some pretty cool, neat cards in this deck as well. But this just feels like a really super consistent list. Just really strong and really powerful and really well thought out. Again, Bohemian went 4-1. Wheatr, what did you see? I know you were there from Bohemian, and what do you like about this list?
When I look at this list, I think Palafin sticks out quite a bit. It's really good into Wobbuffet, which can shut down water quite a bit. And there's also the interesting inclusion of Skater's Park. So Skater's Park puts the energy back in your hand when you retreat, basic energy, and that plays right into Palafin's hand as well. If you've got a beefy attacker stuck in the active and you need to retreat for big damage, or say you have Artillery stuck in the active, you can Rain Dance to it, get those energy back with Skater's Park, and then put them back onto your next attacker after retreating. So it's a cool combo card. Honestly, requires quite a bit of setup to be cool, but I think that's a cool include. Yeah, it's a great list. Bohemian lost like the second round, so he wasn't at the top tables. I was standing mostly at the top 2 or 3 tables, walking around every once in a while, so I didn't get to see a lot of his games, but I know he did well, and he always does well. He's a great player, good deck builder, so cool to see him go 4-1.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned about being good into Wobbuffet is like the most important thing about this deck, because when you're water and all your attacks are 3 or 4 energy and you don't have that cheap attacker to respond to something right away, things can be tough, especially if you've been hexed as well. Like, it's not just Wobbuffet, it's hex, and really any ability lock will kind of shut down this deck. So having that option just to do like 210 damage with 2 energy, it's just great. And so again, kudos to Bohemian for that. Love this list. Love everything that they put into it. Now, this next list is the most head-scratching list, but not because it's not well built, but because there's only 56 cards featured. And so figuring out what those last 4 cards has really racked my brain. So maybe we can kind of figure out what they're supposed to be here on stream. But the way it's built on our screen right now is that you have Metang with the Metal Maker, and you have Bronzong with the Metal Links as your energy accelerants. Metang, again, looking at the top 4, putting any basic energy you find there onto your Pokemon in any way. And Bronzong basically being a Dynamotor effect, attaching to one of your bench Pokemon from the discard pile. Then Reverum, that needs you to discard any energy to draw up to 6. And then, of course, Jirachi Stellar Wish is another really important consistency piece, allowing you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and grabbing an item card into your hand. And I said item card, it's any trader card. You pair that with a skateboard typically, because it does fall asleep and you do want to retreat it out of the active. A skateboard, not in the list. There aren't actually any tools in the list. So I do think that some of those missing cards are probably tool cards, because you are playing an Arven here. But we're going to see that maybe that is maybe even an issue when I talk about some of these other cards too. Strong basic attackers round out our Pokemon lineup. You've got Cobalion that has a revenge attack. You've got Earthworm that's just a big boy if it gets 4 energy attached to it. Zamazenta, Heatran, Dialga all can potentially hit for big numbers, and all are pretty beefy in their own right as well. But the notable miss from this deck is probably Magnezone, because there is a rare candy here. So I have to think that the Magnezone line was being played, because you also have Superior Energy Retrieval, which does work really well with Magnezone. So those are kind of the Pokemon. Some of the trainers there are just really good consistency pieces. Sonia, Gloria, Ball Guy, your setup cards. Raihan to accelerate energy. Teammates is another way to kind of get things going if something gets KO'd. And then just some other consistency and search pieces. Your stadium lineup is Viridian, Mount Coronet, and Parallel City. And then you've just got the 2 special energy, Luminous and Coding. And of course, you've got a fire energy there because you do have Heatran. So this is the list from Connor M. It got 7th place. It went 4-1. Wheatr, what are your thoughts? What do you have to say about maybe the missing cards?
They kept walking around towards the end of our 5th round saying that they were closing soon and we had to leave and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, everyone that made X1 or better, let me take a picture of your list. And everyone was happy, obliged to do that. So anyways, maybe in that chaos of the moment, trying to get it done quickly, 4 cards were forgotten, but it has to be Magnezone. I mean, Superior Energy Retrieval and Rare Candy don't have a home in a non-Stage 2 deck, or a Rain Dance deck as well. So, but then that leaves one tool for Kuzma and Hala plus Arven, which is also kind of suspect. I don't know. I think it's an interesting list. It's really missing out on a lot of consistent cards. Got In and Marnie. Only draw supporters. Kind of rough. And like you mentioned, there are no tools. So I don't know. Not even a good way to get Jirachi to the active spot. Maybe this deck ran hot, but it's cool to see Metal make it to the top. Yeah, really wish I knew what those 4 cards were.
Yeah. So again, Connor, if you're out there listening, we would love to know what those last 4 cards are. Again, Wheatr painting us the picture there that things were probably rushed, so no one at fault for any of that. But I'm just curious too, because again, I had this problem too when I was building Metal. It's like I had 10 extra cards to the side, just being like, how do I fit these cards in there? So I'm just really curious what the last 4 cards are, because they can be like 15 different things, right? And that's just where my brain is at. So kudos to Connor on the 4-1 7th place finish. Again, great list. Just let us know those 4 cards. I'm gonna be thinking about it for like a week at least. Like, what could they be? All right, 6th place. We've already mentioned him at least once. We got Z-Man, and I gotta say, everyone was talking about Monkey Dory, and Z-Man was its biggest supporter. And I was like, I don't think anyone's gonna really play a Monkey Dory list to a big tournament. He's like, I would, and here he is, and he did really well with it. So he went 4-1, got 6th place here. It's a really awesome list. So whenever you look at Psychic, obviously we do have to start with Marshadow was recently banned, right? So a lot of decks are trying to kind of fill that void, and Z-Man has opted to fill that with the Mysterious Tail Mew, which looks at the top 6 and lets you select an item card, and then U-turn board so that you can have a pivot, which does work well with some other cards in this deck as well. Then to help kind of add some draw power to this deck, he's adding in Xatu that attaches an energy to one of your bench Pokemon and then lets you draw 2 if you've done that. And then your other energy accelerant, of course, is Malamar, which is a Dynamotor effect from the discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. You've got more draw in Kirlia, which lets you discard 1 to draw 2 with its refinement. You've got Gallade Buddy Catch, which lets you just grab any supporter from your list. And then you round out with just some pretty strong, powerful cards. Wobbuffet, which can turn off your opponent's abilities. You've got Latios that can hit 180 for 3 energy, although you do have to discard it. Then you've got Galarian Articuno that can go after the bench, and it comes down and is able to attach basic energy to itself, basic psychic energy, up to 2. And then you've got Giratina that just keeps coming back. And of course, Monkey Dory that once per turn lets you transfer 3 damage counters from your Pokemon to your opponent's Pokemon as long as it has a dark energy attached. So some cool things about this list is you will see the 2 Dark Energy being played alongside Crispin, which was a new card from Stellar Crown. And then beyond that, it's just consistency pieces. And like all Z-Man lists, you do see a bit of greed here with the Battle VIP pass, but of course always mitigated by Battle Compressor just being a really good card to get rid of that if you don't find it on the first turn, and has a lot of synergy with what this Psychic list is trying to do too. So really well-built list. Wheatr, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a great list. There's some cool ideas going on in here. A potential for one of my favorite plays in GLC, which is mid-game knockout with Wobbuffet on, a target that you've been damaging with Monkey Dory, or Giratina couldn't quite finish off itself, so you can shut them down with a bit ability lock after taking a knockout. That's one of my favorite plays in GLC. But I really like the Mew Celebrations Mew in here. Yeah, great list. He plays it very well. I think it's one of his favorite decks. I know I want to say it was the last round, he played against Lightning Spread with Electivire, and I can't remember if that list had Raichu, but he chose not to play Bench Barrier and said that after that game, he was happy with that decision because Monkey Dory essentially a bench barrier, and Monkey Dory carried in that matchup, getting all the free damage counters to pass around because of opponent spread. So cool list, and like to see a Monkey Dory list.
Yeah, that's a really cool kind of like talking point there. Is like, I kind of mentioned it too. Like, oh, you're not playing bench bearer? That seems rough. You got some kind of weak dinky mons on your bench. But of course, Monkey Dory mitigates that, and Lightning Spread probably being, not only the best lightning list since Raiku's banning, but also maybe potentially being the best damage spread list, probably makes Monkey Dory really good because all of Lightning Spread's mons are also pretty squishy and unlikely to survive a couple turns of Monkey Dory, right? You think about the two Dynamotors, not only is the 30 retreat Dynamo, or the free retreat Dynamo have 30 HP, which is one Monkey Dory ping. You've also got both the Dynamotors having 90 HP, which is just the span of 3 turns there. I mean, it's looking pretty rough. And if you're playing Raichu in your Lightning Spread list, it's hilarious how Monkey Dory can mess you up because now your Raichu is doing 50 to your own Pokemon because Monkey Dory is putting counters there. So, again, good stuff. I normally say play your bench bearer, but respect on Z-Man's name for not doing it. Power to him.
Yeah, and maybe just a side note or tangent here, but I think Bench Barrier may not have the same power as it used to. I guess Raging Bolt came in when Raikou left, so you could argue it still does. But Raikou really was the last major threat other than Lightning Spread, which doesn't seem to be the most consistent deck. So I can finally start to see the argument for people dropping Bench Barrier. And usually it's meta dependent based on where you play. What are you expecting to see? But Midori's, to me, seems much better than Mew, for example. So if you build your list around it, so that's pretty cool to see.
Next list, we got Sean K's list. And this is a really cool list, too. Again, I love how some Stellar Crown cards have found their way into this tournament, and a lot of cool ones to see here. Now, Sean K, also known as Woag, I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's Woag. I shared some thoughts on this deck list too, but we'll go ahead and talk through the deck list before we talk about his thoughts on it. So, just got some of the best draw in the entire game when you pair Bibarel, Cinccino, Oranguru, and Squobit. You're keeping your hands full, you're shuffling through your deck, kind of being able to see a lot of new cards every single turn. Now, throw in Fan Rotom that allows you to just get 3 colorless Pokemon from your deck as an ability, not even a play to the bench, to your hands. And of course, that's not just basics. You can also get evolutions as long as they have less than 100 HP, or I should say 100 or less. So that gets you not only some of your basics, but the ones that evolve. Like you can grab Minccino and Cinccino in the same turn. Then you've got Kangaskhan, Snorlax, and Lugia. This is the Arrow Ball Lugia, so not the one that we saw from Jeffrey's list. And we are seeing the Swellow, and my understanding is that Swellow is Sean's favorite Pokemon, so it's really cool to see that in this list too. Now, you do see kind of 2 cards that you might not expect to see, although if you've been following some of the colorless lists recently, you're probably not too surprised. We've got Mina, which just searches up a fairy energy and attaches it to one of your Pokemon. And then you've got the new Crispin that says if you search your deck for 2 energy of 2 different types, attach one if you put one in your hand. So you have to grab 2. One of them has to go in your hand, and then the other one is the one that you attach to your Pokemon. So he actually ended up saying that Crispin was bad and that he would not play it in the future, but you can see it being kind of cool in this list. Beyond that, it's just a whole bunch of consistency pieces in this deck. Guzmahala, Winona, all cards that can help you really get set up. You've got tons of draw, tons of search, tons of energy acceleration, and then, of course, just tons of draw power from your Pokemon. I mean, this deck is just real good. It might be best deck in the format contender. Wheatr, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he played all 3 days, if I remember correctly, and I worst showing was 1 loss, so he did very well. Obviously, we know since Nick's made this deck, it's been a top 2 or 3 deck the whole time, probably top number 1 deck for quite a while. So, a great list. You can heck in whatever cards you need, what you think you're going to see. Uh, you can do a lot with it. So yeah, just a very solid list. Yeah, we've seen it all before.
Fan Rotom is pretty busted. And you can see some of the changes that had to be made to the list. Like, obviously, we don't see the Cyclozar in the list. We see another draw kind of support Pokemon included because Fan Rotom is probably just powerful enough because it does do 70 for 1 energy if you have a stadium in play. So the fact that Fan Rotom can be a donk, can be a setup supporter in its own right, and then just get you going is really, really impressive. And I think it's probably worth modifying what Phoenix did with his original Turbo Colors list to do something like this. So shout out to him. But again, if you take his word for it, Crispin is bad in colorless, according to him. I haven't tested it out yet. I probably still am and are going to, but I will keep his thoughts in the back of my head as I'm making bad decisions. All right, next list, we see another really cool water list. And this is our 4th place list coming to us from David S. that also went for 1. So really, really, really interesting list because you see that Palafin that we talked about earlier with Bohemian's list, but it's alongside Seismitoad, which is another kind of cheap attacker that can be disruptive because it does make your opponent's active Pokemon cost 1 more to attack. And then if it gets to stay in the active, it can do 100 more damage the following turn because it does 120 plus 100. So it can be super powerful in its own right. You see this on a similar card with the emergency entry Metagross that has a similar attack with a similar effect. Now, a card that you don't typically see these two paired with is the Special Horn Titan that needs 3 energy, and as long as it has a special energy attached, it does 80 plus 80. Well, this deck is just playing a ton of special energy because it is relying on some evolution Pokemon to do the bulk of the work. So you do see reversal and counter energy alongside wash, splash, jet, and capture. And then you've just got 6 basic water energies as well. Again, nothing in this deck attacks for more than 3 energy, most of them 1 or 2. So again, it's really interesting to see kind of how this deck works with what it has. And of course, Drizzile and Inteleon. Inteleon can just be a really strong attacker while getting you set up. Round that out with Basculin to help get Pokemon to your bench. You've got Basculegion as a revenge attacker doing 30 plus 90 if one of your Pokemon was knocked out. And then, of course, you just got some of the best trainers in the game. You've got Irida, you've got Nessa, you've got Capacious Bucket, you've got Aqua Patch. I mean, there's just so many strong cards in this deck. I really like this deck. We've seen similar decks played at Full Grip Games and their locals there. I think Mahone has his own Seismitoad build. This is really sweet, Wheatr. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I like the Titan. Helps this deck hit over a damage cap that it might have. It's not playing Muscle Band, which I think is common with a Palafin, so having Titan is another big hitter, good option. It's also got a Reizu. Mentioned that I missed it, but that's a good. Every Pokemon here is an evolution line. There are no basics, so a Reizu seems like a good include, especially when you can grab it off of Shady Dealings whenever you want. The only thing that I noticed that seems a little bit odd to me is there are four colorless energies, but only one colorless energy attacker. Well, two, I guess you got Inteleon. So, but with 12 energy overall, that's probably not a problem. I like to see wash energy water decks to get around Wheezing and Sableye and some of the other more niche threats. So yeah, cool list.
Shout out to David. Again, I kind of want to put this list together. Every time I see a regionals deck list, last time we saw it with Solomon's list that was maybe a little bit of a different psychic brew than we had all kind of looked at before at NAIC. Seeing people kind of include different cards in a list that you kind of inspected and seen one way so many times just really gets the brain and the juice and the brewness kicking, and that's what I want to do here. So, David, shout out to you. You have inspired me. Next deck, really cool. You mentioned his name, Paolo. Well, this is Dr. Funko is his name. You'll find him on Discord. But this is probably kind of what the stock Dragon list is going to look like going forward. Ended up going third, 4-1. And as you mentioned, Raging Bolt here is the stellar crown inclusion on this list. And Raging Bolt is super awesome. If you guys don't know what it does, it needs a lightning and a fighting to do its first attack, which does 30 times the amount of energy to it to one of your opponent's Pokemon that's bench or active. So you get a little bit of snipe adage to that. And of course, with one DDE, you're doing 60 to the bench, which is an HP that's pretty common among evolving basics. Then you round out your basic suite with Drampa and Drujigan, which are just two of the best attackers that Dragon has to offer in the basic ideas. And then you've got 3 stage 2s, which if you told me this like 2 or 3 months ago, I would think that you're crazy, but it feels right these days. You've got Gabite to help you search out dragons. You've got Garchomp that can come down and become immune while doing tons of damage at 160. You've got Fast Call Dragonite, which lets you search your deck for any supporter. And then you've got the new Haxorus line. The first 2, the basic and the stage 1, both have kind of cute abilities. The Fracture, which is the stage 1, can't be gusted up or really affected by supporters on the bench. And then there's an Axew that does the same thing, but our friend Paolo here is opting for the one that on a coin flip lets you evolve it with an attack straight into Haxorus. So that's kind of cool. I wonder if that was used at all. But the cool thing about the Haxorus here is that for 1 energy, it can take down any Pokemon that has a special energy attached. And so that's basically me looking at Wailord and being like, that's 1 energy you got, boy. And then the second attack is just 2 energy and it does 230. You're discarding from cards from your deck, but 230 damage is pretty busted too. So this card just has bye-bye Snorlax, bye-bye Wailord. Not for the first attack because Wash Energy and Snorlax's ability exists, but for the second attack, just being able to do so much damage is kind of these tankier mons in the format. And of course, you just look at the energy, you see all the special energies that Dragon has available to it because you've just got so many random energy costs. You have to make sure that your supporter suite is kind of looking at your energy base and making sure it kind of matches. So you're going to see Guzma and Hala. You're going to see Colress Tenacity as ways to search out energy. Even Teammates and Raihan are oftentimes getting you special energy from your deck. And then you look at the items, you have things like Energy Lotto, you have Night Stretcher, Special Charge, also just because you know that energy is going to come into play. And so, really cool deck. Wheatr, you're a Dragon guy. Is this what you would be playing if you were playing Dragon next week?
He's missing Cloak and Tatsugiri. I think I'd have one or both of those, but I like a lot of the display here, like Lost City is a must in Dragon, in my opinion. I really like the Haxorus line. People see 3 stage 2s and are taken aback, but I played 3 stage 2s for a long time, and it seems to work out okay. You don't need them all at the same time, so Haxorus deals with so many meta threats by itself that I think it's a great card. Yeah, it's a cool list. I'm fortunate to get to play against Paolo a couple games on Sunday and see the list in action. And I was blinded for a little while afterwards with all the bling in there. It's he always blings out his deck and it looks great. So Cool list, and awesome to see Dragon make it to third place out of 51 participants. That's really cool.
I mean, we're getting an all dragon set, and the all dragon set is really sad because it doesn't have a lot of options for dragon going forward. But what dragon has gotten in the other sets has really been impressive. Like, I think for almost a year there, it felt like dragon was this one thing that you have to play, and this is the optimized list, and there's really not a whole lot you can do. You can try to fit in Salamence and Novern, you can try some of these other cool things, but this was it. And now all of a sudden we're like, hey, you should maybe be playing Tatsugiri or Dracloak. And we didn't even mention Regidrago not being in this list, but that's like another really strong, powerful card. You know, you've seen Lee Hoffman's builds with Reshiram kind of popping up. I like the Ancient Dragon deck just because I'm that person. I like Jet Cruise Dragon Knight. I know Fast Call's way better, but you're not going to stop me from playing my Jet Cruise chat. It's just where I'm at. But like Dragon just feels fun, and Raging Bolt is a really cool include. And Raging Bolt was one of those cards that like we were sitting here being like, is it good? Is it good? I think it's really good. So we'll see maybe if it gets more results going forward. But Paolo did say that he used Raging Bolt quite a bit, right? He said it was good, if I'm not mistaken.
Good card. Yeah, just think about Usmahala for Lost City, CDE, Remoraid, or a Sobble turn one. That gets me kind of excited. Water has always been a difficult matchup for Dragon, and I think Raging Bolt helps with that a lot. You can force them to play Manaphy, and if they don't have it turn one for whatever reason, then you can ruin their day. So Raging Bolt helps out in many ways that Dragon didn't have a solution for previously. So I think it's a great card.
And I remembered my very insightful comment earlier that I was going to mention. Now that we're talking about Raging Bolt, we talked about bench bears and needing to play bench bears. But now that Raging Bolt exists, it might just be, I think every optimal basic just has 70 HP. Like, I think that's that's what I was going to say instead of bench bear. Just play your 70 HP basics and you'll be mostly fine. Halucha will come down and wreck your day, but that's okay. All right. That's so most of the top 8 lists there, all really sweet, all very interesting deck lists. Like if I mentioned it with that water build earlier, but like I'm really inspired by a lot of these lists because they're not what you might typically see. Each and every one has its own individualized picks, and it just feels really cool to see this because we don't get these regional results often. So Wheatr, again, kudos to you. Kudos to everyone who helped out. Thank you all the people for sharing your deck list. They are all wonderful and great, and I loved everyone talking about them. But now we got to get to the champions, the top 2. And these are all the lists that went 4-1. We only had 2 5-0 deck lists on the day. And since the round ended after 5, they had to play a championship later on. So one of the deck lists did go 6-0, one did get 5-1, but I have them marked here as going 5-0. They deserve it after that. So first list that we're going to talk about is the second place deck list, and it's coming to us from Caleb F. Again, a junior that went 5-0 in this 51-person event. Again, just so great to see that. And this is, again, we got Lazy Code, which was a pretty good, looks like meta call on the day, considering all the things available to it and some of the other deck lists that we saw. But again, we talked about slacking, turning off abilities. We talked about Fan Rotom. Again, we see that Lugia with the energy loop here. This deck is playing Free Retreat Cyclozar, and in addition to that, we do see the Dodrio with the Zooming Draw, which lets you put a damage counter on it and draw a card. On top of that, for only 1 energy, it does a ton of damage per the number of damage counters on it, so it's another 1 energy attacker, which you can pair with Fan Rotom, which is also another really good 1 energy attacker. So this deck is a little bit more flexible with its cheap attachments than maybe some of the other colorless lists that we've seen in the past. Again, you've just got a really good draw engine with Cinccino and Barrel. Of course, you've got Porygon Z to pour those energies onto your bench using its Crazy Code ability. Notable exclusion is no Revenge Kangaskhan, which can only do 120 and needs kind of a damage mod to maybe do a little bit more work. But you don't see that here. which feels kind of right now that I'm looking at this list. I actually really enjoyed that exclusion, even though Kangaskhan's one of my favorites. And then when you look down here, just a ton of some of the best energy that the game has to offer. Tons of double energies, ton of energies with effects, things like jet energy, gift energy, recycle energy, draw energy. Just when your energy does something else besides providing energy for attack, you always have the leg up on your opponents. And then when you look down here at the trainer suite, you see some pretty sweet cards like Professor Kukui that we all love to see. It's Muscle Band plus draw 2 cards on a supporter, which is really, really cool. And then you see things like Hex, Boss, Guzma, Birdkeeper, just kind of the traditional suite that you see in a colorless list, rounding out what is just an amazing deck list. Wheatr, colorless, really good, right?
Colorless really good. I saw Caleb get off a bunch of turn 1 fan rodums the tournament. He goes to Z-Man's locals. I know Z-Man helped with this list, basically modifying the Jeffrey list. So it's a solid list for sure. But Caleb, I believe, was second place at Z-Man's locals in terms of overall badges. So he's a very good player. He qualified for Worlds last year. So great player. Obviously, the skills transferred to GLC. But it was really cool to see a junior just wrecking shop on everybody all day. Ran into, I think he got donked in the finals against Tubi, so just had like a dead draw to end the 6-0 dream. But yeah, really good list, and he piloted it really well. I remember seeing him play against Paolo. They were both 4-0, and maybe they were 3-0 at the time. I can't remember, but I saw Paolo take a knockout with Haxorus on, I can't remember if it was Snorlax, but I said, oh, that's probably game. He didn't have much of a board, but he knew exactly what to do. Had Snorlax attacking again, I think the same turn. So it was kind of, he knew the lines, he knew the deck very well, so really cool to see. And I think Van Rotem puts this deck over the edge. It's really strong.
I think some iteration of this list, whether it's this list or not, might be best deck and format contender, just because I think Fan Rotom is the boost that this deck probably never needed but has now. And it's interesting to see. We did end up, so Logan and I ended up doing a Baltimore Regionals finals rematch. And so I piloted the deck that we're about to see in a second, and Logan did this. And we did find that this deck did struggle against its finals matchup. So let's talk about our last list here, which is Subi's list. And for those of you who don't know, Subi, also known as so many other names, but Tyler Matthews is his original name. You've probably, if you are a big Standard watcher, have seen him on stream at some point, because he's just such a skilled player in Standard, and he is equally as skilled when it comes to GLC. In fact, this deck, which is lovingly known as Lost Circle, is widely accredited to him, as he is the first. And I would say that this particular build has his footprint all over it. So even if you're looking at other Psychic Lost Zone lists, there's only one deck that I know that plays this tormenting Chimecho, that while this card is smiling at you, you are crying on the inside, because Chimecho is a menace. Let's start there when we're talking about this deck list. So there is this Chimecho, for those of you who don't know, that has the Silencing Bell attack. And so it does only 10 damage, but your opponent can't play Pokemon with abilities the following turn. And if you don't know how limiting that is, just imagine playing grass. Just imagine playing water against this Chimecho, and you will know the feeling that I have felt. And it's an effect of an attack, which means that you can't even just like escape rope it out of the active and be done with it. Like, it is just lingering, and they can do this repeatedly because they play so many switch cards. Well, why do the switch cards matter? Well, they need to get cards into the Lost Zone. And so you're going to see Comfy here, which lets you look at the top 2 cards. One goes into your hand, one goes into the Lost Zone, because you're trying to get to 10 cards to use Sableye Lost Mine attack. That states if you have 10 cards in the Lost Zone, you can put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. Basically, the whole deck is built around getting Sableye's attack off. So you've got a card like Meowstic that on evolution can search up 2 trainers. You're looking for basically only one, Colress's Experiment, which lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. 2 go into the Lost Zone, the other 3 go into your hand, and then you're trying to reuse Colress's Experiment as much as you can. So then you have Banette. who basically sacrifices itself to the Lost Zone. Only Pokemon, no cards attached. The cards attached do go to your discard pile, but it lets you get a supporter back from your discard pile to your hand, so you can play that Colress experiment over and over again. Mewtwo, with the Mind, I think it's Mind Break ability, lets you put a supporter from your discard pile on top of your deck, which again, you're hoping is Colress experiment, which you're hoping to then get into your hand with Comfey. And then, of course, you've just got some other pretty good cards in your deck. You've got Gengar that you can discard that can come back to your bench, and then it does damage counters, I think 20 times the number of bench Pokemon that your opponent has, to kind of chip in some damage while you're setting up so that you can kind of fix some mass for your Sableye. Then you've got Blacephalon, which is basically Sableye, but for 2 energy, and only on that 3 prize turn. And then the last kind of addition to this is the new Dusknoir line with the Cursed Blast ability. The Dusclops, which is the stage 1, can sacrifice itself, giving your opponent a prize, but it does put 5 damage counters on one Pokemon. And the Dusknoir here can do the same, but it does 130 damage counters, or 13 damage counters, 130 damage, instead of the 5. Really cool deck. You've just got tons of items because you're a turbo item build. You're going to see Pokestop in here. Only the 6 energy, 2 special, 4 basic. Tons of ways to recur them. Basically, this deck is Lost Zone engine, recovery, ways to get to those cards. And it can be a menace when it is firing on all cylinders. I don't know how this deck gets beat. Wheatr, what's your experience with this deck, and how did Subi take the gold?
I think he actually played against a lot of colorless. I think it was 4 or 5 different colorless decks in that tournament, and apparently his deck dominates colorless. So one thing that you mentioned was his fingerprint on the deck was Chimecho, but I think another one is Blacephalon. I don't recall any other list playing Blacephalon, so that's another interesting piece there. I think Blacephalon got better with Dusclops and Dusknoir on the list, since you can manipulate the Blacephalon turn a little bit more easily. I know from his feedback, he said that Dusknoir was the best card in the deck during the tournament. It helps with showing Snorlax along with Spell Tag. And then if you've got the Dusknoir damage, all you need is a single Hex to take down Snorlax. So it made probably its worst matchup a lot better, and as you can see from the results, so very good deck. I found it so interesting. It was playing Clara and Tulip together in the deck, which totally makes sense given how much you need to recur a few specific cards. So that makes a lot of sense. And I know some other feedback he gave was that Gengar is terrible, and he's going to immediately remove that, along with, I'm going to forget the other cards, but I know he wanted to add something like Vengeful Punch or another way to spread a few more damage counters. So great player, like you said, he's the standard wizard, top 4 to regional last year sometime, and just back to dominate GLC again as usual. So it's been nice since PTCGO went down. Not nice now that Subi's gone because he doesn't play webcam, but nice now that I don't have to deal with Chimecho. You said that you cry on the inside when someone plays Chimecho, but I probably cry on the outside. It's so painful to play against. It's such a good card and massively underplayed in my opinion.
I agree with you there. That Chimecho is just so good in a bad way, and so bad in a good way. But this list is really cool. Again, I played it on stream a couple different times because I did end up taking it to a Twin Leaf tournament as well, and the only game that I lost to was to Roger's Turbo Colorless build, and like everything was prized. I think like I had to find Gladion and Meowstic and Colress's experiment was prized, and I got Crispin on turn 2. So like the deck is strong, but like it's hard to deal with that when you have to find all your pieces. So I think the deck is really good. I ended up, following some of Subi's feedback. He didn't like the Gengar, and I really liked the Blacephalon. So one of my changes was the Gengar straight up for Raihan, just because I wanted to have a way to maybe power up the Blacephalon in one turn, and all your Pokemon do get knocked out pretty readily, so having Raihan as another option, also as another way to just go straight up find the card that you need. I thought was maybe a good include. We'll see if Subi with his next iteration maybe agrees with me on that point. I know at some point some of these lists were running it. And then there was one other cut that I made. I can't remember what it was for, but it was off of his feedback too. But the deck list is strong, is what we're getting at. And you mentioned the Dust Noir, like, being really good in this deck and like colorless being a better matchup. Well, if you get into this Dust Noir, you can actually use Sableye first attack, Scratch, which is 1 energy and 20, to take out a Snorlax now. Because you put the 13 damage counters on it and then you can just do 20. And it's really cool how, like, again, Snorlax was one of the deck's biggest issues, and all of a sudden now, like, you have lots of ways to deal with it that aren't just Hex twice in a row and put damage counters on it. So really cool build. I think Fan Rotom probably helped a lot too, because now colorless decks are a lot more setup oriented, and now Sableye has a lot more options to kind of take multi-prize turns on the bench. So cool deck. Congratulations to Subi. Really well played, really well done. Awesome deck. I've been following that Lost Circle deck since he does it. Every time he pops up, I'm like, what's the sauce? What's the sauce? So I am super excited that I got to see not only him go 6-0 and win the tournament, but also that I'm able to see his deck list now. And we need to get him on the pod, because I've been chatting with him a bit about getting him on the pod, but he doesn't play a lot of GLC these days. So we got to figure out what he wants to talk about. This is it. You hear me, Tyler Matthews? This is what we're talking about. Come on. All right. Final thoughts, Wheatr. Final thoughts on the Be More Reggies, as I'm quoting it now.
Final thoughts. I had a lot of fun. I met a lot of awesome people. There was a judge there, Jesus, who appeared out of nowhere right when the tournament was about to start and helped me run the tournament. So it was great to have him be there. Yeah, it was great all around. It was so much fun to see GLC tournaments that go past 4 rounds, because they're few and far between, and they're never at regionals, so or almost never. So that was fun, and I think this was the first time for Gaming Gin to run a regional. They were the event organizer. They didn't know what they were doing. I think maybe they're learning a little bit. Louisville has a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday GLC event now. I think they probably took some notes about what was happening, what events were popular. So it's good to see that Friday GLC is back. Happy about that. I'm happy we had a huge tournament. Got to see how it shook out at the very end. And yeah, I was just happy to be there and be a part of it.
As someone standing on the sidelines, my final thoughts is it looked like you had a great time, and I'm super jealous. I wish I could have been there. There was maybe thoughts of me just jumping in the car and driving up on Friday after you guys mentioned this, but just things didn't quite work out that way. I'm going to live vicariously through all of you. I'm a member of Z-Man's Discord, where they talk about all the shenanigans and like awesome stuff that they get up to in Baltimore, and just like seeing their community, just it makes me want to make the drive. And next year, if there's another regional in Baltimore, I am going to find a way to be there, because it just seemed like an awesome, awesome time with awesome, awesome people playing an awesome, awesome game with an awesome, awesome format. And that's just everything that we want, right? As GLC players, as TCG players, it's just to go have fun, win or lose, hang out with cool people, and that's what I felt like I saw. I felt like I lived that through all of you. So thanks for putting that tournament on. Thanks to everyone who made it happen, and thanks for providing us with all this cool data and talking points, Wheatr.
Happy to do it. Wish I could do it again. Somebody asked in the Discord earlier, if are we doing a tournament in Lille or Lille or however you say it in France? And I like, well, I'm in NA, so I don't think so. But if Stella or Jeffrey or somebody over there or Subject wants to run a tournament, then hey, that'd be awesome. But I think people really enjoyed it. So we've had questions about Louisville as well. Are you running one in Louisville? Or so it seemed like there was a good reception, and yeah, it was a fun trip.
I think people are hungry for more like competitive GLC, right? Like, obviously GLC can be a very fun and casual format, that there are people that are very dedicated to what it is, and I happen to be one of them, you happen to be one of them, and we want to play our decks that we've worked really hard on, tinkering with, adding in pieces against some of the best players in the world. And I think that's what your tournament really allowed people to see, and we saw some really strong decks, some really cool decks, and we saw some really, really strong players come out and enjoy themselves. So again, kudos. I'm hoping for more to come. Now, Wheatr, as we finish out some things, people might know this, people might not know this, but beyond all the great things that you do for Jim Wheatr Challenge, besides running Cardboard Warriors, besides developing Twin Leaf, besides running in-person impromptu events, you're also starting a TCG player marketplace called Heavily Played. Talk to us about that and kind of some updates on it.
Yeah, well, thanks for putting a slide in here on that, but I've been working on this for about a year and a half now. Ever since I got into DLC, I really enjoyed cards. I enjoy playing them with my son. I enjoy online community, playing in tournaments, and um, some of my experiences with online orders in the past weren't great. So I started looking around for competitors and what there was available, and there really wasn't competition for TCG players, so decided to make one. Kind of I happen to have built another marketplace, my day job previously, so it's something that I have some experience with, and we've done it. We're almost there. I'm just waiting for my partner of ours to flip a switch, and then we'll be live for beta testing. So really looking forward to it. Hope to be sponsoring some tournaments, some GLC tournaments, and maybe some bigger standard tournaments online soon. So yeah, some cool things are coming. I'm very thrilled about it, and I hope everyone will at least try it out or take a look at it in the future whenever it's online. I'll be sure to make an announcement, Discord and Twitter and things, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it so much too. I mean, you've done so much for our community, and so many things are awesome in Jim Wheatr Challenge because of work that you put in. I have no doubt that Heavily Played is going to be a success, just because I know how much work you're putting into it, and of course, I've seen the results of your other hard work with all the things that Cardboard Warriors has done. So again, kudos to you. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I hope to be one of the first orders. Hope to get things shipped straight to my house and just be like, yes, I'm going to send them back to you to get them signed and then send them back to me. That's what we'll be doing. So again, excited about Heavily Played. If you're like me, if you're a fan of Wheatr, check it out when it comes out. Of course, it's probably going to be a little whiles away. It's coming soon. Soon TM, as we all say in the Twin Leaf Discord. But, excited to support you and your endeavors, just like you've supported basically all of Jim Wheatr Challenge. So Wheatr, thank you for that as well.
You're too kind. I appreciate it.
Hey, I've been learning some like Gen Z vernacular recently, and I don't know if you've heard the term glazing, but it doesn't have a great connotation with it, but it does mean that you're talking well about someone. So I'm going to glaze Wheatr. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. There's probably someone cringing somewhere, because one of my favorite things to do is to make my high school kids cringe when I say stuff. I would never say this to them, but making kids cringe is pretty fun.
My kids are just now getting to that age where I can embarrass them, and I'll tell you what, that is a lot of fun. So I can relate.
It's the best thing to do as a dad. Ollie's only 2.5,
yeah.
So we're not quite there yet, but I get the same vibes with my high schoolers. So can't wait for the day that I get to embarrass Ollie. Well, on that note, talk about embarrassing. Let's end the pod. Hey, Wheatr, thank you so much again for being on, talking Jim Wheatr Challenge, talking Baltimore Regionals, talking CBW and HP. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. Hopefully, life circumstances will change soon, and I can be back on Thursday night's gaming, because that was my GLC time, and so I don't have any anymore. So be looking forward to getting that back one day.
Oh yeah, we'll be excited to have you back. That being said, everyone else, thank you so much for listening to Let Loose, the podcast dedicated to all things Jim Wheatr Challenge and the Pokemon TCG. We will see you all next week. Have a good night.